Hey guys, thanks so much for being here with me. Alright, so another topic that I want to talk about that Spirit's been giving me a lot of downloads on is if it doesn't serve you, cut it off, cut ties, right? And as always, take what resonates and use your own discernment. And I do believe that if it doesn't serve you, cut ties. But what happens when you cut so many ties that you're alone? For me, that happened overnight. And it was one of the most challenging, but also the most transformative times of my life. So I know that this is a message that somebody needs to hear. Sometimes cutting ties can be sacred, right? Sometimes it's the only way to protect your peace and stay aligned. And pruning sometimes is necessary for growth. That's a spiritual truth. Now, there's a difference, an energetic difference, between releasing with love versus cutting ties from anger or fear. When we release with love, that comes from clarity. You see the situation clearly. And it also comes from a place of self-respect. You're not proving a point. You're honoring yourself. You're honoring your frequency, your vibration. And that feels clean and peaceful, even if it is difficult or emotional. You can think of them without resentment. You can wish them well and still keep your distance. And the good thing with that, one of the good things, is there's no karmic backlash, right? It lightens your energy field and invites more aligned connections. And when we cut cords or cut people out of fear or anger, it's more of a reaction, right? It's fueled by hurt or betrayal or panic. And then that energy becomes heavy, kind of jagged, and it just leaves a lot of, loose ends or loose cords, as we say, attached. And you might be replaying old arguments, old conversations, maybe even stalk their socials, or you feel triggered by the mention of them. And that just keeps you tied to them energetically and really does delay your healing. So the key takeaway here is that when you release with love, you're not saying what they did was okay. You're saying, I choose peace over poison. We know what they say, right? That holding on to resentment and anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die or get sick. So I choose peace over poison. Cutting from anger can feel powerful in the moment, but it often keeps you tied in ways you can't see. And sometimes our cutoff is initiated out of hurt or anger, right? And maybe later, upon reflection, more clarity, you realize that was the right thing to do. But then you choose to really, look within and heal from that experience as well. So it can start off that way. So yeah, it's sometimes doing, cutting people out. And sometimes it's not just people, it could be, jobs, it could be, relationships, family, friends, of course, but it could also be jobs, it could be, other things as well in your life that are no longer aligned and you have to release it with love. I know me personally, I grew up in a large family. And then I left that large family and formed a family of my own. So I always lived with someone, and then overnight I lived alone. So I can understand how cutting ties and cutting people out really can, make you feel alone or lonely. And even simple things for me, I know, felt new. Like simply deciding what to eat for dinner when no one else's opinions or tastes were in the mix. And at first, it felt kind of silly, and it might even sound silly, but it was also kind of scary, not having to ask anyone else what they wanted or considering what they liked, or, I actually had to ask myself what it was that I wanted. And those small choices became deeper lessons, in discovering who I was, what I really wanted, right? And for me, living alone sped up my healing process. Don't get me wrong, there were a lot of challenges. Loneliness, facing wounds, distractions, confronting my own patterns. But I had a lot of breakthroughs, I learned self-awareness. I developed a stronger connection to source, obviously. I gained a new level of independence. I've always been a very independent person, but I gained a whole new level of independence. I learned to really thrive without, leaning on anyone else's energy, whether that be a positive or negative thing, right? Without even having to really consider anyone else. And in a big way, it was very powerful. So there's a difference between discernment and isolation, right? Discernment is when we choose people who align with our values, our energy, and our growth. It's not, excluding people out of judgment or, being mean. And isolation is closing off to all people, even the good ones, out of fear or mistrust. And the line between the two is very thin, especially if you've already been betrayed or had your heart broken, etc. And so we have to kind of learn to notice when that self-protection has shifted into self-sabotage. And a big thing is having strong boundaries without shutting out love, whether that be love from other connections, friends, romantic love. And some good ways to filter connections without hardening, our hearts, is having those energetic boundaries, whether we're doing, cord cutting, rituals, visualizations, whatever it is you need to do to keep your energetic boundaries, to protect your energy. And also listening to our intuition over appearances. People can say and do a lot of things and appear a certain way, but we have to learn to listen and trust our intuition. And letting people earn trust slowly. This is one that I really, really had to work through personally, because it seemed I either shut people out entirely or didn't want to be around them, or I trusted them fully. Well, as much as I could in my energetic state I was at the time, right? Honestly, trusting people has been something, I really had to work on a lot in general. So I either gave them too much of my trust or not at all. And so, or maybe too much too quickly is probably a better way to put it. And I had to learn, one, trust is earned, and just because someone earns a little bit of trust, well, that means you give them a little bit, not all of it at once. So you learn these lessons, well, sometimes it's the hard way, right? So learning that people need to earn your trust slowly. That's how we can have those boundaries. And I believe solitude is spiritual training ground, not punishment. That time alone really allows you to hear your own voice clearly, reconnect with inner truth, and to become your own source of validation. Because I found, at least for me, I needed a lot of validation in the past. And now I the things that I do are because I want to help others, I want to give back, or I'm doing something for myself, not because I'm seeking some external source of validation. Now, of course, we all go through little things right here and there we still continue to work on, that you realize we're all work in progress, so no one's perfect, right? But you start to see more and more that you don't need it. And that prepares you to re-enter society, relationships, friendships from a place of wholeness. So again, cutting ties is powerful, but the goal isn't to be disconnected entirely from life and people. So there's a sweet spot there, being whole on your own and choosing people from a place of love and not loneliness. And that's the spirit. That's the spirit. Yeah, that is the spirit. That's the message from spirit. And an affirmation for you. I am whole on my own. Solitude is my sanctuary. I choose connections that honor my spirit. Sending light, love, and healing, and I hope this helped.